everyone, and welcome to the Raptor Queens Podcast. As far as we know, the first ever all-woman podcast covering the Toronto Raptors. My name is Sarah Khalil. I am so honored to be your host for our first ever podcast. Joining me today are my other Queens of the North, Essie, Magic, Sonali Sharma, and Allison Hope. I will introduce them to you in just a minute, but first I just want to say to everybody listening, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are absolutely honored and overwhelmed by the support that we've received both online and in person. We've had people offer sponsorship. We've had requests to join other people's podcasts. We have people offering to do launch parties for our podcast. It's just been incredible to see people get behind this podcast, and I don't know if the time is just ripe and this is what people want, but it's very exciting. And actually how this podcast got started is because I was on Twitter, and all I follow on Twitter is Raptors contents. That's it. And so I was on Twitter and I saw someone tweet, I want a podcast covering the Toronto Raptors led by women. I really, really want it. And the minute I saw that podcast, I said, I'll do it. And I tweeted that out. I said, hey, if anyone wants to join me, send me a DM. I heard from Essie and Allison, both at the time were strangers to me. They both sent me a DM. We got on the phone. We said, let's do this. Let's get a fourth. I looped in my friend Sonali, who I watched the Raptors championship run with last year. And the four of us said, okay, this is happening. And this is it. It's happening right now. So yes, thank you. We are so excited, thrilled to have all of you tune in to listen to us. And we're going to talk Raptors and a lot of Raptors in the next little bit. But before we begin our analysis of this week's games, we're going to actually just take a minute to introduce ourselves. So I'm going to start with Essie. Essie, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Essie. People call me Essie Magic though. I am a Canadian living in Los Angeles. I have lived in LA for about 6 years now, but I'm still a very dedicated Raptors fan. One of the, I guess you can say, negatives of living in America though, is that I'm constantly exposed to all the biased American media who think the Raptors aren't going to win or think that the Raptors were going to be garbage because Kawhi left. So I constantly find myself having to seek out Canadian voices and Canadian analysis so that I can get a good perspective and find people that I can relate to. So I'm really excited to be a part of this podcast for that reason. Pretty much I've been a Raptors fan since the Vince Carter days. No matter where I live, I'm always going to be dedicated to the Raptors. They're my number one, no matter what.
Amazing. Me too. Raptors forever. Sonali.
Yes, Raptors forever. I'm Sonali Sharma. I grew up in the Kootenays and then have lived in Vancouver for the last 10 years. Basketball has been an integral part of my life, growing up with two brothers, having to keep up with them, and Vince Carter growing up. And I'm just really excited to be with the female voices. Like Sarah said, not sure if there are any other all-female led podcasts out there. And yeah, I'll be providing a sort of more millennial voice to the programming. I'll be focusing on fashion choices, gossip, and, mostly a lot of talk about what Serge is wearing and the younger guys. So I'm the boy crazy one in the group, I think.
You're a tea time specialist, absolutely. Allison, why don't you take a chance to share something about yourself with our listeners?
Hey, thrilled to be here. I'm Allison Hope. I'm from the middle of the country. I've been watching ball for a long time, probably since there was this guy named Dr. J. Anyway, I did miss a few years. I was watching the Leafs, and in retrospect, a complete waste of time. And the years with the Lakers and Showtime had a big impact on me and my love of fast break basketball. So that's part of the reason I'm enjoying the Raptors so much this last couple of years with Nick Nurse running the show. And I just want to say one of my favorite podcasters made a comment, William Liu, create the content that you want to hear. So I hope that's what we're going to do here.
I mean, I'll introduce myself. My name is Sarah Khalil. Like I said, I am from Vancouver, from Calgary, but living in Vancouver now. I practice law, and mostly the reason I started this podcast, or like the reason I'm here, Allison, to your point, is because all I do is talk about basketball anyway. So I figure, okay, well, might as well talk about basketball to people who are actually interested, as opposed to just the random bystanders in my life who unfortunately have to listen to me all the time. So this is a good outlet for me and a huge relief for the people in my life, I'm sure. Okay, and then just my other shtick or my other agenda, basketball related, is I'd love to see the NBA come back to Vancouver. So that's something I, in the background, really hope happens. Bring the Grizzlies back. Okay. So yeah, this isn't a Grizzlies podcast, though. It's a Raptors podcast. So let's talk about the Raptors. That's what we're all here for. This week, the Raptors went 3-0 against Cleveland, Detroit, and Washington. It's nice to see them on a win streak after a couple of tough weeks. All of these teams that they won against were sub 500 teams. That's okay. The Raptors remaining undefeated against some sub 500 teams after this week. They were high-scoring games. They were very fast-paced. It was really good to see the Raptors run again. As Allison said, they're a really fast team. It's really enjoyable to watch. But unfortunately, in Detroit, 3 of our top players went down. Marc Gasol, Norm Powell, and Pascal Siakam are all out with injuries indefinitely. And so that was quite the blow. Let's start with you, Allison. What were your general impressions for the Raptors this week?
Well, as far as the Cleveland game, I was only able to catch the second half. We knew this was probably going to be an easy game, but it also had the potential to be a trap game. We were going into this having only won 1 of 4. So this easily could have gone the other way, but it ended up being kind of a laugher. We were up by 12 at the half. We won every quarter except we tied the 4th. And I see that everybody that played was a positive. Pat McCaw had interesting stat line. He put in significant minutes. And I noticed that suddenly we're shooting 50% from 3 in that game, which was nice. The Detroit game, I didn't catch any of it, but we won that battle, but we lost the war. We've had some bad luck in Detroit with injuries. I think it was Fred a couple of years ago that went out with a shoulder injury, which really hurt him in the playoffs. And then the game last night was, in a way, it was closer than it should have been. But considering that we were down 3 rotation players, it wasn't so bad. And I think that's all I have to say on that.
Okay. Essie, what about you? What are your general impressions, or if there's anything in particular that you want to highlight? What stood out to you this week?
So this week it's kind of a weird week to judge because it's like right when they started getting their groove back, then the injuries came. But I was happy to see that, they were starting to get back to the Raptors basketball that we're used to and that we usually see them succeed with, which is more of a fast-paced game. They're trying to just, transition buckets went up. And they were getting back to, the style that helps them succeed, better ball movement. Pascal wasn't being as timid anymore. He was, playing like a leader and playing like how we expect him to play as, the star of our team now. So they were definitely getting their groove back. It was unfortunate to see the injuries happen. I think where I'm most concerned is the playmaking, because Marc Gasol isn't going to be there, and he's really great at, getting people the pass or people cutting through the lane and things like that. So, or, initiating a transition with his long outlet passes. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but I'm happy to see that Fred is back, and Serge has been playing, really consistent and much better as well, since he came back from his injury. So yeah, like I said, it is a weird week to judge. I do think it's kind of a topsy-turvy thing where the guys who are injured now were the ones who had to carry the load when Kyle and Serge are out, and now it's completely opposite. Now Kyle and Serge have to carry the load while those guys are out. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, it is nice to see Kyle and Serge returning to top form this week. Sonali, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, like I said in the beginning, I've been really just paying attention to the newer younger guys. And so, I mean, Pat McCaw, defensively, he's just such a brilliant player in my mind. I think he's really going to grow into himself. And I mean, the guy has a really high IQ, and I think Nick Nurse really sees that. I mean, in terms of being in the starting lineup, I think like Terrence Davis and Rondé Hollis Jefferson, I think these two we're going to see a lot more of with all of these injuries. And I'm just really excited. I'm really excited for Serge being back. And you can tell that he's got the confidence, and the more active he is, the more he's going to be playing on both sides of the court. So it's, yeah, I agree with all you guys in the sense that we don't quite know. It's hard to judge. And these next games that are going to come up, you know, there's some real heavy hitters that we're going to have to compete against. So it's too soon to say, but, you know, I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, and I do want to add to what you said about Pat McCaw, because it's so interesting how, you know, when he came back from injury, almost everybody was like, why is Nick Nurse giving him so many minutes? What the hell? You know what I mean? Like everybody was, is Nick Nurse thinking? Why does he love Pat McCaw? I think even one of the press people asked him in one of the post-game interviews, why do you keep playing McCaw so much? Or not, that was more of a rude way, but probably in a nicer way than that. But I just wanted to add that I think one thing I noticed is that, like, I get it now. Like, I get why Nick Nurse is playing him, you know, that amount, giving him those minutes. He does have such a high basketball IQ. He's quick, you know, he's really good at making passes and getting the transition game going, giving the ball to the open man. He even, you know, sometimes to his detriment, where he's almost too unselfish and, you know, passing up a shot that he should take. So I think that has been a really big revelation, is seeing exactly why, you know, Nick Nurse is going with this guy.
Yeah, and the guy has 3 rings, I think, if I'm not correct. He has 3 rings. That's more than I have.
Which means we're going to win this year. We have the lucky charm of Pat McCaw.
I agree. McCaw!
That's great. Yeah, you know, one of the things I absolutely love about this Raptors team is, despite the injuries, I still expect this team to win every game, and not an expectation like we're entitled to win every game. You have to earn every win, of course, but there's a sense there's a sense around this team that the players believe that they can win any game against any team, no matter who's on the court, and they actually really believe in each other and trust each other. And that's one of the things, like, my initial thought when Marc injured himself, obviously I was like, oh, that sucks. And then Norm injured himself. And that, honestly, I have to admit that was a real blow. It was so fun watching Norm begin to blossom and, like, really step into the player that we all could see was there. And then to see him to go down with an injury, I have to admit, I was a little gutted by that. And then the next day to find out on Twitter that Siakam is also out indefinitely. And I think part of that is, you know, it's frustrating. And I think you have part of dealing with injuries is, like, admitting that it's frustrating. But at the same time, what I really appreciate about this Raptors team, and what I think they learned last year during their championship run, is that ultimately it's not about what you say about the injuries. Like, if you were to approach this from a narrative of, oh, we're injured, so it's going to be a rough go, then yeah, I mean, it might be a rough go. But I think how this team approaches it is game at a time, play at a time. And when you come with that kind of approach, what ends up happening is it doesn't actually matter who's injured. What matters is the 5 players that are on the court at any given moment, are they performing? And anything can happen there. Like, we say, oh, Gasol's our playmaker. That doesn't mean you can't make a play with Gasol off the court. It means those 5 players that are on the court have to make a play in that moment. And I think the Raptors are exceptional at living and playing that way, and that they really learned that last year. So even though there are injuries, of course, that's part of the game. You have to deal with them. And I really wish they were all just back at this point. I really appreciate how they play every moment of every game, and that they just believe that in any play they can execute and succeed on their game plan.
And I would like to add, for the record, that I hate the asterisk. I am, like, traumatized from the the constant asterisk put bet on the Raptors championship. So yes, I agree with you, Sarah, 100% that, you know, I love the way this team just approaches every game the same, regardless of who's out. They all come to play next man up mentality. So yes, I really do agree with you.
Thank you. Thanks for agreeing with my hot take.
Except maybe Malcolm Miller, but that's okay, and Stanley Johnson.
Okay, we'll get back to that in a minute. Allison, what's your take on the injuries? Maybe specifically Norm Powell. I know that you are kind of hot and cold on Norm, but what were you thinking in the last few weeks about his gameplay, the injury, the impact of that? Go ahead.
Well, I will admit I'm impatient with Norm at times just with his decision making, but he's an immensely explosive player. And it was devastating to hear him go down. Like he was probably playing like the best ball of his life. And it's never going to happen at a good time, but it couldn't have happened at a worse time. I think he was rolling with confidence, and more importantly, his teammates were putting him in position to succeed. Like good passes, he makes great backdoor cuts, and it's just really sad to see. And I think he's going to be out for a couple of months.
Yeah, shoulder injuries aren't fun, and he looked like he was in a ton of pain as he walked off the court.
And one thing too I want to say about Norm as well is that it's one of those things where I kind of just had to accept that if his role on this team is really just to be a scorer, you know, then he's doing great. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things where we get kind of caught up because his basketball IQ isn't the best. He's turnover prone. But if he's indeed just meant to be a scorer for us and that's his role, and Nick Nurse says, you know, shoot, score. I don't remember what quote it was, but he said something along the lines of, if we could get Norm to score 16 per game or something like that. And if that is indeed his role, then he's doing really well. And I don't like to see player stat lines where it's like 21, 0, 0, 2, 0, like, you know what I mean? Like they just have mainly points and don't do much else. But I think for this team, it works because, you know, this is a team where we have those scoring droughts where we just can't score at times, and we don't have a consistent closer. So I think the way he's been playing up until the injury, of course, has been really, really good for what this team needs right now.
Yeah, I agree. One of the gaps that needed to be filled when Kawhi left was an offensive generator, and Norm is capable of playing that role. And I think there was a quote from Nick maybe 4 weeks back where he basically said something along the lines of, it would be great if we could get 16 a night from Norm. We don't always see that consistently, but what we're hoping is instead of 1 of every 2 games, we start getting that 2 of every 3 games, and then 3 of every 5 games, and then 4 of every 5 games. And so he was looking for this slow, consistent buildup from Norm versus this kind of all or nothing, like every single game. And I thought that Norm really responded to that.
I want to say that I am really impressed by how much better you described the quote than I did. You said the whole thing so eloquently, and I was just like, whatever he said, you know what I mean? But good job on that, Sarah. Good job.
Thank you. It really struck me as like good coaching. So that's why I remember it so clearly. Yeah. Sonali, you look like you have something to say. Why don't you go ahead?
Oh no, I didn't. I just the other person that we maybe haven't really touched on is OG Anunoby, and I was curious to hear your thoughts on him because, you know, I mean, he took a lot of hits yesterday, but the guy he's been an integral part of the last 3 wins that we've had, and Sarah, I see you doing your Raptors like win dance right now, so I'm just curious to hear what y'all think about him, and because I love him too. I just love everybody.
I feel like you summed it up. I love him. Like, he's just great. Not like I love him, but like to me, OG can do no wrong. I love his defense. I love how hard he plays. I love how he just steps up and makes random plays, shows up with a dunk, good passing. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot to improve, but right now I'm kind of enamored with him, and just he's blowing me away this season. I love him.
Except he needs to play with bubble wrap.
Maybe true.
I think I was listening to someone talk about hearing the Brooklyn broadcast team, and they described OG as cut from a slab of marble. So I think that was a pretty good observation on their part.
I heard about that too.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah, everyone seems to in the league. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff on Twitter around, assassination attempts on OG and how people are trying to bring him down. And so, he really is a threat, I think, to all the other teams in the league. And that's kind of cool to have that in our pockets.
I mean, the first game against the Clippers, Kawhi poked him in the eye so that he wouldn't have to deal with OG's defense.
So true.
Gosh, Kawhi, is that the type of game you want to play?
Yeah, I don't want to play against you. I'm just gonna take you out. Whoops. No, I'm sure that was not an intentional hit. But yeah, okay. So let's just see. I mean, I don't really know. I think to Essie's point earlier, this was kind of a weird week overall. I mean, not playing against the greatest teams. I don't even know if Washington plays defense ever.
They do not. I can confirm they do not.
I think they're league worst defense. They're 30 out of 30.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My impression yesterday watching the game was just, do they even play defense? I don't even know what's going on here. So it's hard to really analyze these types of games. Like, it was great to see the Raptors run, and they should run against teams like this. If they're not running, I think we have a major problem. But, to see, it was just fun. It's fun to watch this team play.
There was an amazing play last night in the second quarter. I think it was toward the end of the quarter, and it was an inbound after a Washington basket. And Fred fired the ball up like a half-court pass. He saw that OG had a mismatch on Isaiah Thomas. It was a beautiful pass, and OG just went to work. Like, really good recognition by Fred there for the mismatch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's see. It doesn't really seem like there's a lot more to discuss about this week's game, so I'm going to open it up just generally. Does any of you have any final comments about this week's game before we move into our next segment?
I was just really happy that Kyle Lowry got a continuation last night. I think that was his star pride moment.
He should have had two.
I know he should have had two, but those are what he loves to get, and it was just really nice for him to get some redemption in last night's game.
Like, if that was James Harden on that first one, who'd have been shooting.
Yep, that's why it's called the Harden rule.
Okay, great. Well, then let's move into our next segment, named after somebody who perhaps all of us remember, Kawhi Leonard. We obviously last season everyone called him King of the North, and this season we're reclaiming it. We're going to have a weekly King of the North, somebody on the Raptors team who we feel deserves to be acknowledged. Each of us picking our own King of the North, and so here we go. Sonali, who is your King of the North this week?
I think it was Pat McCaw. I think I've already given my homage to him today. So, I mean, yeah, Pat would definitely be my King of the Week.
Okay. Essie?
I'm going to go with the Mafuzi chef. I'm really impressed. And considering the week prior, I was so frustrated with him. I'm just so happy to see him doing well. Pretty much he's been steadily improving since the Brooklyn game when he had that double-double. And then against Detroit, he had 25 points, 13 rebounds, 55% from the field. He was plus 17 for that game. And then it's just continued. I mean, even yesterday in the Washington game, he also, again, had a double-double, 23 points, 70% from the field. Like, he is stepping up, and especially at a time when we really need him with all the injuries. I am just so happy to see how he's doing. So, yeah, he's my King of the North.
Love it. Allison?
Essie, I'm really happy to see that you're back on board with Serge. I guess just like I'm back on board with Norm. So I'll give you a disclaimer here. I completely stand for Kyle Lowry. However, and he was going to be my King of the North this week. But after last night's game and the beating that OG took, I'm going to say I'm going to pick OG. I look back at the numbers, and he almost had a triple-double every game. So he was a +9 against Cleveland. He was a +9 against Detroit, and he was a +10 last night. And the guy was shooting free throws with nasal packing. That's pretty impressive. So I'm gonna go with him for my King of the North.
OG Wananobi.
Definitely.
OG wanna Larry OB. Yeah, I actually had a hard time picking. All three of you picked excellent. All three of them are excellent. So is Kyle Lowry. I almost picked Kyle as well, and then I decided, it's Norm Powell for me. I know he went down with an injury. I want to acknowledge that guy's breakthrough and his breakthrough style of play. Like I said, I was gutted when he went down. So that is, that's who I'm picking. I actually have one more thing I want to just mention about Norm. And I was thinking about it. I don't know if you guys have heard of this term in psychology. It's called the upper limit. The idea, this upper limit idea was made famous in a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And the idea is basically that things can sometimes happen when you reach a level of performance that is outside your normal. And the things that can happen can be injury, sickness, some form of, like things are going really, really well at work, and then suddenly your relationship doesn't do so well. And it's kind of the idea that like, there's only so much good you can handle before you hit your limit. And then in order to keep having that level of good, it like requires something to keep going. Now, I really hope this doesn't sound like I'm coming across like there's anything that this was anything other than an injury that happened to Norm. Like, I don't want to make it sound anything other than that. But it's one of those things where you see somebody doing so great, and then it's like the best you've ever seen them perform, and then something happens. Anyway, I think that goes to Allison's point. Like, it couldn't happen at a worse time.
I think in like Eastern religions, they call it the evil eye, Sarah.
Really? What's that?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that like my mom, I told her yesterday, I said, we have 3 players down, and she said, oh, it must be Nazar or evil eye. The other team coaches are probably giving them the evil eye. They should like do something to like ward off this bad juju.
I can totally relate because my family is from Ghana and we believe in juju, bad juju. So it sounds like something my mom also.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like one of those things. Raptors are playing just so good, and they hitting up against an injury. To me, that I kind of relate to this. Like, this is going to be a breakthrough for them in the long run. Like, this is ultimately going to work in their favor. So we'll just keep working with the Raptors and cheering them on and being fans. Okay, and then so our next segment, we were called the Court Jester. I don't know if you can hear the theme. We got some queens, we got some kings, we got some court jesters. Our Court Jester segment is who do we see as potentially needing some improvement at this point in time? It's Jester of the Week. Let's go in reverse order, starting with you, Allison.
Well, I'm going to go, I have a hard time with this. I was either going to choose Malcolm Miller with his minutes last night, or Marc Gasol's monochromatic outfit. I really can't make a decision. There was nobody really egregious this week, so I'll just that's as far as I can narrow it down.
That's fantastic. Okay, Essie.
I agree with Allison. There wasn't really anybody who stuck out like a sore thumb to me this week. So I had to find this weird way of justifying my court jester, because it's going to seem odd because I was just praising him like when we talked about him before. But my court jester this week, and it's not because he had a bad week, but it's just because I see so much potential in him, and he's so young. That I think he has so much, potential and room to grow. And that's going to be Pat McCaw.
I knew you were going to say that.
Like, praising him so much. But I just think that although his basketball IQ is really good and he's great on defense, I just think that he still should take the opportunity to shoot more. And sometimes it's like there's a difference between being unselfish just for the team and you actually being a little bit unconfident, or I don't know if I said that right, unconfident. And I just feel like sometimes there's just this hesitation with him where you can tell it's not just about being unselfish. He's not giving up the ball for the sake of, I'm doing what's best for the team. It's, I'm not confident enough to shoot here. And so I think that's why I made him the court jester, just because he just has so much potential for growth. And given that he's a shooting guard also, I would like to see him shoot a bit more. But yeah, I do like him a lot. It's just, like I said, I had to come up with a weird way to justify my court jester of the week.
Sonali, just before I get to you, Essie's analysis is the same as mine. So I second that. Go ahead, Sonali.
Yeah, and I think my analysis is the same as Allison's, except we don't see eye to eye on Marc Gasol's monochromatic outfit. But I just think Malcolm Miller is like one of those like online dates that just kind of hangs out there like furniture. He never swipes right on you. He never does anything. He's just there.
Oh my gosh. I feel like he's like a little brother or something. Like he's just learning his way. Like, do you ever see him in the pregame videos where they go win? And he's always like jumping around, all bouncy, excited to play, like the little brother getting to join his older brother's friends. Like, I don't know. I like Malcolm Miller.
Okay, maybe because I'm an older sister to two brothers, that maybe I feel that's annoying.
That makes sense because I'm the youngest in my family. So I'm the Malcolm Miller.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, well, I feel like this is actually really great. Sonali, lead us off with Tea Time. Everyone, Tea Time is our gossip segment, and I feel like somehow Sonali has just perfectly positioned us to jump right into this. Go ahead, what you got?
Well, I mean, just sort of riffing on Allison, which is sort of my goal throughout this whole podcast, is to riff off of what Allison says. Talking about the outfits, I mean, last night, Norm Powell, what was he wearing?
What, in a bad way?
No, I honestly thought it was incredible. In fact, this morning I looked up his entire outfit, where he bought it from, how much it cost, and I can tell you that highlighter green turtleneck that everybody was buzzing on Twitter about cost $450. You can buy it at Nordstrom's. It's a Paul Smith original, and so if you're looking for a last minute Christmas present and you want your guy, your dad, your brother, your neighbor, the mailman that you don't want to hit because you want to be able to see him in all the snow, great turtleneck. So I mean, that's been a huge talk. And then I don't know if you guys saw Kyle Lowry and Matt Thomas and Casual Friday and how they were in the performance of the Nutcracker.
So cute.
Cool. It was really cute to see them doing something outside of basketball. And just, Matt Thomas, I don't really think about him much, but he's got a really playful side to him. So it was cute to see that and to see them be a part of the community. And not a lot of like bad gossip, lots of good gossip. And also, did you guys know what that bling that Norman Powell was wearing yesterday meant? It said UTG.
Understand the grind.
You got it. Yeah.
Nolly, we understand the grind.
So I think we all need these UTG necklaces. Some guy named the Bling King makes these things. So,
okay, If we ever get merch, 100%, we're getting someone named the Bling King to make it for.
Absolutely,
definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't really think I have any other gossip other than, no, not very much out there yet.
Did you? I'm sure everyone remembers the fan in Utah who got kicked out for verbally abusing Russell Westbrook. So apparently, this guy has filed $100 million lawsuit, and he wants something crazy like $68 million in damages, and his girlfriend also wants damages. So I'm going to cheap shot the lawyers here. Who takes the bigger L here, the fan or his lawyers?
I'm gonna go with the fan. Only because I did see that. I read what he said he was really saying, and it just didn't make any sense at all. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but his excuse for the abuse that he allegedly said to Westbrook was laughable. So I think the fan is going to take the loss.
I think I agree with that.
I have to be honest, I actually don't know what we're talking about. So, and I'm just going to defend myself, I guess. Yeah, fan loss. Yeah. Okay, great. So now we got our gossip. Let's move on to just around the league generally. There were some big games this week. There's some trade rumors going around. Let's start with, I think, Sonali, you had something to say about Kevin Love.
Oh my gosh, did you guys see the dunk attempt by Ja on Kevin Love?
Oh my
I
God.
have watched that video at least 60 times. It's like, it could have happened. It could have happened. And every time I think it's going to happen, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it was reminiscent of Vince Carter. Oh my gosh.
It was incredible.
But props to Kevin Love for laughing at himself. I mean, that was prime also.
Yeah, and I think he tweeted that had he made the shot, it would have been it would have changed basketball history for Ja, right? So yeah, that's been sort of my I've been just watching that video on repeat, just being like, all the things in my life that could have happened that didn't happen.
Okay. And Essie, did you have something to say about Kevin Love?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting, and this might be a little too gossipy, I admit. But if you notice, okay, well, I have to give some context first, but they were doing some trade specials on ESPN, and a lot of the analysts have said that they would like to see Kevin Love be moved to Toronto. And of course, Raptor fans are like, no, his contract, his injuries, and all this stuff, because he's injury prone. But I wonder if he's heard about those rumors, because prior to the game, did you notice he was being really chummy with the Raptors players? And, players always greet each other before and after games, but it was like a little more than usual. Like after the game, he was literally whispering in some of the players' ears and covering his mouth when whispering, which usually means you're hiding something when you cover your mouth, when you're going in someone's ear like that. So I was just like, I wonder if Kevin Love wants to come to Toronto, or he heard those, what some of those analysts said about him fitting in here. So that was a thing.
Did not notice that.
If I was a player, I'd want to go to Toronto right now. Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I feel like if you don't want to go to Toronto, it's because you want to go to LA.
And be sponsored by Bumble.
Exactly.
Oh.
It's really funny that Kawhi wears a Bumble logo on his jersey, right?
It just doesn't match him at all. It's so funny. It's very ironic.
When he could have worn Sun Life, but no.
Quite right.
And this is when sponsors are like, I knew our money was worth it. This is why we put our logos on the jerseys and pay for it. Okay. All right. Other big games. Speaking of LA, LA, I mean, it's a bit of an LA centric league. We're going to play into that for a little bit. LA versus Clippers, which is the better team?
Who's good? You want to go, Allison, first?
Well, yeah, like I said before, the Western Conference is kind of my blind spot, just because how late the games are on. Between the Lakers and the Clippers, I'd have to say I think the Clippers are probably a better team. And just watching, I forget what game I watched last week or the week before, that Montrezl Harrell, oh my, he is going to be low-key another Draymond Green. That guy is something else. And I think as the season goes on, I think LeBron's going to start to wear down a little bit. I meant to look up his minutes. I don't know where he's at with minutes played. So I think when we get to April, I mean, injuries aside, who knows what the future holds, but I think the Clippers are a better team.
So I'm going to say It's really interesting because it's like where the Clippers' strengths are, the Lakers' weaknesses are, and vice versa. Like, for example, the Clippers have really good wing defense versus the Lakers, who have really good interior defense. So they're like opposite. And then also too, like the Clippers are really deep versus the Lakers, they have obviously Anthony Davis and LeBron, and they have their role players, but they're not as deep as the Clippers. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think I'm going to go with the Lakers. And I just think that in a 7-game series, well, first of all, the Clippers don't have anyone to answer for Anthony Davis. And I just think that if they do end up as the Western Conference Finals, I just think that, you can't stop LeBron. I just don't, and I'll admit I'm a closet Lakers fan. So they're like my secondary team, it's far back, but I do like them a bit. So I think the Lakers are better. And I think that when it comes down to it, Anthony Davis and LeBron will reign supreme because they are the better duo. Although the Clippers are the better team, I just think that the Clippers won't have any answer in the end. And again, there's that interior defense problem. So that's my take.
Okay.
I'm a little suspicious of a team built like on the premise of Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. I mean, like honestly, they've been around. They don't ever seem to stick anywhere, and Dwight Howard just hasn't ever been able to step up big when it mattered. So I'm a little suspicious of that.
Yeah, and I can see why you would think that for sure. I mean, I was suspicious of Dwight Howard when he came back into the league. And I mean, essentially, he only came back because Boogie Cousins got injured. And so they signed him. But I do think JaVale McGee has something special to add to the team. I mean, he was part of the Warriors, so he does have that fight in him. And I think they're all just buying into LeBron's mentality, and they talk about having their group chats, and they did a lot of team outings before the season started. So they all came into this season, ready to win and they're being, targeted. Their territory is being threatened by the Clippers. And so that's motivating them even more. And then of course they added Danny Green as well, who we all know, I mean, we call him icy hot, but he has his moments. And I think he was a strong addition to that team. So I just think they're all buying into the mentality. And so I think that they will, I just think I don't know. I just love their vibe, their team, their mentality going into the season. Sorry if my bias is showing too much.
We'll have an opportunity on Christmas Day, actually, to let both these teams try to prove either you right, Essie, or you right, Allison. Lakers versus Clippers, one of the Christmas Day matchups. Okay, so then, moving on slightly from LA, we also had, well, not completely from LA, but we had the Lakers play the Bucks this week. That was a potential finals matchup. Thoughts on that game, and also the Bucks generally? Are they the best team in the league? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I'm not convinced yet about the Bucks because I think they're just on a mission because they were embarrassed last year. I mean, let's face it, being up 2-0 in a series and then losing 4 in a row when you were the number 1 team in the East. I mean, it's bad. So, and, Giannis has been on a tear pretty much any game against, when he played the Raptors, he even admitted it. He's like, yeah, of course there's something special about this game. You know what I mean? So I just think he's on a mission, but I'm not buying it just yet. I just think they're playing, harder than everyone else. Obviously they're really talented, but they're playing really, really hard because they're on a mission. And I think that time will tell. And I'd like to see what happens in the playoffs. And I know that might be cliche to say because it's like, obviously none of us will know, but I'm not buying it just yet. And also too, a lot of players have also been injured on the teams they've played against throughout their winning streak. So I haven't bought into the hype just yet.
I agree. I think what they're doing this year is analogous to last year. Although I hear that Giannis is shooting threes now, but is that going to be sustainable in the playoffs? And I mean, God, he couldn't hit free throws against us. So, I mean, if you look at the best team in the league, I mean, the Clippers have a proven superstar, and I'm not talking about Paul George. And I think the Bucks have to prove themselves
Agreed. Yeah, they still have to prove themselves. Yep.
Yeah, I think I read. I just briefly read something about how the Bucks this year are sort of they're being compared to sort of the Orlando Magic, like when Dwight Howard was on the team. And for me, I think they're very defensively strong, but I agree with the two of you that they have a lot to prove still. I mean, that just consistently being a good defensive team doesn't mean you're gonna be the best like the Raptors. But anyways.
I'm going to take this question literally. Who's the best team in the league? One of the things I was watching the LA play the Bucks and then the Clippers play Houston, like I got really clear, like, man, it's fun to watch superstars, and there are absolutely superstars on these teams. And then you look at the Raptors, and they are truly a team, and they hold each other up. And yes, Pascal is a budding superstar, and just it's fantastic to watch him with Kyle Lowry. He's our all-star. But the Raptors win because they play team ball every single game. And so I'm going to go with the Raptors are the best team in the league. I don't even care if I'm biased. I'm going to own that forever. Raptors forever. And that's that. So speaking of the Raptors, Christmas Day matchup, they're playing against Boston coming up. We're going to do a Christmas special. Predictions for the outcome of this game. Mine's obvious. I think Raptors are going to win because I think Raptors are going to win every game because that's how they show up and play. So that's my take. Allison, Raptors or Celtics?
Okay, so I will admit to being a born pessimist. If I was on the Titanic, I would not be rearranging the deck chairs. I would be getting in the lifeboat. So I'm pretty pragmatic, and I've got to say, we're not going to win this game. I hope I'm wrong.
I loved your comparison.
Okay. I'm not going to be one of the top 5 people I call when I'm in a state of emergency.
Speaking of, before I give my prediction, did you guys see the commercial that everyone's been talking about, how they show, like, adding to what Sarah said about the Raptors not having that, Pascal's a budding superstar, and in the Christmas commercial, you see Raptors being dunked on and blocked, and the only time you see any of them looking good is when Pascal is stretching.
Yeah.
No, missed it.
I'll send it to you. It was so funny.
It was the worst Christmas preview commercial I've ever seen. Like, I was like, what is this?
American content.
Ornament. He's like stretching to literally hang the ornament that they've like CGI edited in the video.
Oh, yes, I did see it. Yes, that was bad.
So anyway, my prediction is I'm going to be a little bit more like Allison. The injuries, I don't think we'll be able to overcome the injuries in this game. It's just against Boston, and it's a great matchup. You know what I mean? And I think the NBA got pretty fortunate with that one because they didn't anticipate Boston to be so good and the Raptors to be so good. And it's turning out to look like one of the better matchups of that day. But anyway, that's a whole other point in itself. But yeah, I just don't, with all the, my earphones came out. Whoopsie, technical difficulties. So I just don't think they're going to be able to pull it out. I think the injuries are going to catch up with us. I'd say if we had, Pascal at least, and I'm the most bummed for him, actually, because this was going to be an opportunity for him to showcase himself as, a big star, up and coming star in the league. So it's just, man, I just don't think, I don't see it happen. Unless Chris Boucher, somehow pulls out the Chris Boucher we saw against the Lakers last time, maybe. I don't know. But the bench is they're going to have to step up a lot. And hopefully Fred has a really good game. Honestly, considering he was coming back from injury just the last game against Washington, he still did pretty good. He had 18 points. I mean, his field goal percentage was not good, but hopefully he steps up. I'm hoping they win, but I don't think they will.
Got it. Sonali.
I'm going to be an eternal optimist like Sarah and say the Raptors are going to win.
I'm dancing over here. I'm so happy. I don't know. I'm so confident. I just believe in this team, man. Believe in yourselves. Believe in the city. Says
McCaw!
On yourself too, and understand the grind.
Exactly. UTG, Hundo P, UTG.
I got to come up with a cliche now. How about strength in numbers?
Isn't that the Warriors?
It is. It is. That's
Oh,
all I could think
God.
of.
Oh, that's funny. All right, everybody. So, like I said, we're gonna wrap it up now. Like I said, we are doing a Christmas special, which we don't normally do because it's a special. I guess I didn't need to tell you all that. Anyway, so we actually don't even have a normal yet. This is our first podcast. Normally, we think we drop on Sundays. We are doing a Christmas special, so we're gonna have another podcast come out on the 26th, and I'm looking forward to, or maybe it's the 27th. I'll let you know. Anyway, follow us on Twitter at Raptor Queens. You can also find all of us individually on Twitter. We've got our profiles posted, and we will see you. We will see you all shortly. Thank you for tuning in, and it only gets better from here. Yeah.
We the North. We
We the North.
the Queens.